When can we get something going on?
Oh, man.
What's up? Big fan.
Thank you. I know that. Man, you fight with nobody. You won the belt with nobody. Man, get the fuck out of here, man. Please. Please, get the fuck out of here, man. It's my night. Who I'm fighting?
Demetrius. Not the press
Get the fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck you, man. Hey, get the fuck out of here because I'm gonna fuck you out right now, motherfucker. You're a horrible fighter. Horrible fighter. Horrible fighter. Payday. You want payday. I know that.
Watch your mouth, bro. Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. See you was on.
Yeah. I see you outside, yeah, man.
We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. The moment you all been waiting for, Demetrius Andrade crashes Canelo Alvarez victory press conference after he defeated Billy Joe Saunders. The world awaits. They want to know Boxingego's thoughts. What do I think of it? Stay tuned to this video. Y'all can find out. What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Make sure you guys click the link in the description to order and set up and get TUBEBUDDY. TUBEBUDDY is a browser extension. I've been using it for years. I start off with 0 subscribers. We're well over 200,000 and counting, and we continue to grow. TUBEBUDDY is definitely a resource I've used. I recommend it. That's why I've had this partnership with them. And click the link in the description to learn more about TUBEBUDDY, to optimize your YouTube videos, get seen, and just become more discoverable on this platform, this beautiful platform called YouTube. Now, you guys seen the clip at the beginning. Demetrius Andrade ran down on the press conference. A lot of people sent me the clip, asked my opinion, tagged me, asked me on live streams, and I'm getting around to make time in the video. Now, as always, I'm gonna give you my truest thoughts, and my truest thoughts may not be what some people, I guess, expect, but when it comes to me, you should have no expectations other than my opinion and the truth. I tell you how I feel. When I seen it, I kind of watched it, and I gotta be honest with you. I feel like Demetrius Andrade is a terrific fighter. He's undefeated, but I understand the intent of what he was trying to do, but sometimes when you have an idea in your head versus the execution and how it plays out, those aren't necessarily one and the same. Like, a lot of people have ideas like, I'm gonna do this and this, and then when you actually try to, like, let's say you want to build something, right? You try to build something, and in your head it makes perfect sense, but when you get all the materials and things out and you find out that the wood, you can't shape it like you want, or this and this doesn't work, or it's harder to bend this piece of metal, it might not be what you anticipated. And I think as is the case for Demetrius Andrade. Again, he's been calling out Canelo since the 54, the 160 days, when Canelo was at Canelo weight at 155, 160. I've been a supporter of Andrade and also Canelo in the world of boxing, and I've pushed for that fight. But I think this whole crash in the press conference, the timing was really weird, and I don't think it really did Demetrius Andrade any favors, and the timing just looked off for it. Now, in terms of entertainment, it was fun to watch. But for starters, here's the thing. When you do something like crash a wedding or crash a press conference, you're usually doing it to push for and advocate for the fight. However, Andrade has done this in the past, and it still didn't lead to a fight. He did it with Jermall Charlo. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was after Jermall Charlo beat his mandatory, Julian J. Rock Williams. That was years ago, maybe 2016. Andrade still hasn't fought Jermall Charlo to this point. So the way his career has looked and the opportunities, or, you know, the fights that have been put in front of him haven't been somebody the quality of Jermall Charlo. So he tried this before and it got him nowhere. Versus a person who successfully did it, Erislandy Lara. He jumped on stage, people didn't see him. Canelo had just come back and put a win in the win column after the Floyd Mayweather loss, and he had just beaten Alfredo El Perro Angulo, who's a mutual opponent with Erislandy Lara, and Lara did it the right way. He just jumped on stage and came up behind Canelo, and he put Canelo basically in the hot seat and upstaged Canelo and said, hey, what's poppin'? And I think they were speaking in Spanish and stuff. With this, we seen, first of all, I gotta admit, I do like the English speaking Canelo. I like that this fight week, you seen more of Canelo going through the whole promotion speaking English. I think that was better for his brand. He was like, get the out of here, get the F out of here, get the F out of here. So it was good to see Canelo working on his English, and his English has come a long way. You understood everything he was saying. I just don't think the timing was good, and I don't think it worked in Andrade's favor. And I'm gonna explain why more in this video, and make sure you guys smash the like button. So like, it looked like Andrade was asking a question and he's like, what's good? And then he made it about himself. He said, when are you gonna fight me? And then Canelo says, you fight with nobody, you fight with nobody. And then Andrade says something to the effect of, who you fight? You ain't been fighting nobody. Now, that to me, listen, I know Canelo's gamesmanship, and I know there are people that he hasn't fought that we want to see him fight. Guys like Jermall Charlo, Beterbiev, if he was going to fight at 75, David Benavidez. But for Andrade to say who you fought, you ain't fought nobody, and you look at the names that he has that have eluded him or deals that haven't happened, it doesn't really make sense. And you see Canelo says, what? Who have I fought? Oh my gosh, you fight. And then Canelo, he like started laughing, because you have to admit, listen to what I'm saying in this video. Canelo Alvarez, based on, and I understand part of it is politics. Canelo has the look, you know, he was on Mayweather undercards. I know the whole story. I followed Canelo since he's been in America. But whatever you say, Canelo has a good resume. He has a good resume. I would argue with anybody that 30 years, I think he's 30 years old, 30 years or younger, for whatever reason, there's no one that has a better resume than Canelo Alvarez at this point. You know, guys who have great resume like Sean Porter, I believe he's older than 30. You know what I'm saying? Danny Garcia, older than 30. So 30, the 30 club and under, Canelo has a good resume. You can't argue that. He's been fighting since he was 15. He had the look. He had fought on Mayweather undercards. Then he fought Mayweather, so that's a great name. He fought Erislandy Lara, who just got a vicious first round knockout. He fought Gennady Golovkin twice. Hey, no, guys, right? He fought Miguel Cotto, Hall of Famer. He fought against Caleb Smith, a ranked guy. Billy Joe Saunders, a ranked guy, champions as well. So for Andrade to lead in with that, like, I understand pitch, it looked off. Like he kind of missed me with that fight. You know what I mean? I understand wanting to get the fight with Canelo, but the whole thing, I'm just telling you my honest opinion. The whole thing looked off. You said, who have you fought? But people aren't going to jump on your side unless you're like a Sean Porter and you got the resume to back up a statement like that. You can't ask Canelo after he just knocked out Billy Joe Saunders in a unification, albeit I think there's still tough fights and tougher fights like PBC fighters, David Benavidez, Jermall Charlo, Caleb Plant for Canelo. But it was still somebody you have to say is one of the top 5 guys, top 3 guys, or whatever people put with Billy Joe Saunders, right? So I didn't really care for that comment. Now, on Canelo's part, the thing he said that I didn't care for was he said, you'll never get the fight. And they say never. I didn't like that from Canelo. I didn't like Canelo. That's why I say I have mixed feelings about this whole situation. I didn't like Canelo just automatically discounting Andrade and saying you'll never get the fight for that. You'll never get the fight because, you know, boxing fans are going to look at that as a duck. If you just say, hey, you'll never get the fight, you fight nobody, you fight nobody. The other reason why I don't think this was the best look for Demetrius Andrade, it was entertaining, but I don't think it's the best look. You ask who Canelo has fought, and Canelo has a better resume than you. Albeit Andrade has been a boogeyman of sorts and hasn't been able to get the big names, but part of that is his fault. He's aligned himself with the white promoter, Eddie Hearn, with Rematch Room, that hasn't really put forth much effort in securing big fights for Demetrius Andrade outside of clout chasing Charlo. You know, he's putting him in with Lucas Keeler. His last fight was Liam Williams, and his smaller promoter before that couldn't get him much better either. So you look at it, and it's been the same song from Andrade for years. Highly skilled, you know, great fighter, charismatic, clean cut. But if you look at the resume, some would argue his best opponent that he has fought is Olympian Vanes Martirosyan back in the HBO days. And I'm not the smartest brother in the world, but HBO has already been out of boxing for years. So we know that fight was some time ago. So all in all, I just don't think this gets Andrade really much closer to his goal. Canelo just fronted him off and tried to sun him and said, get the F out of here before I mess you up. You know, that's just a little tough talk or whatever. But I don't think it really worked. And that's my whole point. If you're going to upstage someone, you got to do it like Lotta, to the point where the fans are on your side and everybody in the room is like, ooh, you know, the pressure's on Canelo. But the way, I don't know, something about the way he went about it. Erislandy Lara, he upstaged Canelo. He offended Canelo. He didn't do as much like cussing and screaming and stuff like that. And he got what he wanted. His next fight, Canelo's next fight, was Erislandy Lara. I'd be willing to bet that the next fight is not going to be Demetrius Andrade. So if he went about it differently, maybe that could happen. The other thing is Andrade is a champion at 160. Canelo just unified at 168. So once again, the timing in this whole situation is bad. If Andrade was going to do this, to me, he should have been did this. This is what people were asking from Andrade years ago. Like when you were at 154. You were right there at 54. Canelo was at 54 or 55. You had the WBO belt, I think it was. And then you called Canelo the B word and he wasn't looking your way. And as soon as you got stripped of the belt and it later got in the hands of Liam Smith, Canelo ended up fighting him. So I understand why Andrade would be annoyed not getting the big fight. But I would have liked to see this run up on him and press it. The timing would have been a lot better when you both are at 54. Or even more recently, when you've been a champion at 160 and Canelo was a champion at 160, then it would have made a lot more sense. And I think the optics of it would have looked way better. Canelo just sold 70,000 plus tickets, they say. I can't corroborate that. But according to what they're putting out, it looked like it was pretty full and packed. He did 71,000, had a knockout over Billy Joe Saunders in a division that you haven't currently fought at, right? He knocked out a champion, unified. The conversation is now shifting to Caleb Plant. This is the moment in the particular year and time that Andrade runs up on Canelo at the press conference and gets kicked out. So to me, I don't really think this did Andrade no favors. It doesn't tell us anything new. We know Canelo hasn't fought you. You can go on BoxRec and find that. But if you're going to run up on somebody, I would imagine the goal is to put the pressure on them and get the fans and people on your side to pressure that person into fighting you. And I don't think it was successful. I think he just told you, I'm not going to ever fight you. You know what I mean? He just said to Brian Custard, he's like, oh my gosh, the guy's fought nobody. So to be honest, it just makes it look like your attempt, it makes it look more desperate. Like, you know, like you need this. And you know, he's wearing a shirt. Demetrius Andrade wore a shirt that Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo Alvarez are afraid of me, right? The other issue I have with this is he got kicked out of the press conference like he was a pedestrian. He's signed to the same person, Eddie Hearn, who's promoting Canelo last 3 fights or whatever, and he's promoting you, right? So this is another reason why the timing looked bad to me and why it looked and reeked of desperation. Eddie Hearn, if you listen, he was like, Nick. And I'm assuming Nick was the dude that was like shooing Demetrius Andrade and their father off and the security guard that was like ushering them to leave. So that's another reason it doesn't look good, because Canelo has a press conference, 70,000 plus people in the attendance. He just unified. He had a good performance, very sharp performance, getting all this praise. And then this is when you do it. And your own promoter is sitting up there and he's basically calling security on you to escort you out. So it just doesn't look good for Andrade. The other thing is, when we're talking about timing, Andrade just fought Liam Williams, and I thought he won, but it looked like he got a little bit tired. I think Liam Williams only won like 3 rounds, 2-3 rounds. But it wasn't a sensational knockout ending, so I think the timing was bad then. You fought at 160 against Liam Williams, and I thought you won, but the perception that I seen for the fight, some people were underwhelmed, if you will. So I don't really see this leading to Canelo fighting him. I know he wants to fight, but again, he's not in the division. His promoter's not getting him big fights. His promoter is having security escort him out. Hey, not now. It's the press conference. Hey, not now. Nick, escort them out of here. And then you're just yelling, hey, don't talk to my dad like that. So to me, it looked kind of like embarrassing and humiliating. I'm just being real, because when you're doing something like that, I feel like you got to get the people on your side, and the goal is to get what you want, which is the fight. And I don't think he made any progress in doing that. You know what I'm saying? And Canelo's like talking English, trash talking, get the F out of here. So to me, it wasn't even the best of looks. And like I said earlier, I would have preferred to see this energy from Demetrius Andrade probably a couple years ago, 54, 60. Then it would have made more sense. You have no fights at 168. Canelo, there's great fights for him. You know, he can try to unify for undisputed, which I guess is the game plan. If not, David Benavidez. If not, he already said Benavidez and Charlo are names. So I think if we're talking about non-champions, David Benavidez and Jermall Charlo, based on the way they've branded themselves, they're probably in the queue ahead of a Demetrius Andrade. Truth is the truth. That's my truth. That's what I see. Unfortunately, Andrade's career so far it's kind of been the career that could have been. Like, your team has to put you in positions to win. Like, you could have fought Jermall Charlo years ago and you pulled out of the fight after the fight was announced over money, right? You had a Billy Joe Saunders fight, and your promoter and the company that your platform you chose, DAZN, didn't ensure that fight got done. In fact, when Billy Joe Saunders and Andrade was agreed, it was when Billy Joe Saunders was with Frank Warren, right? Frank Warren, we all know, and Eddie Hearn don't even really like get along or do much business, but that was a mandatory situation, so they had to make the fight with Saunders. Saunders was the champion and Andrade was the mandatory, so the champion would get stripped. So he had to make the fight, so they had to work together. Later, Billy Joe Saunders came to Eddie Hearn. Andrade has been with Eddie Hearn and Rematch Room before Canelo and Triple G, yet he hasn't got no Caleb Smith fight, no Danny Jacobs fight, no Canelo fight, no Triple G. So it's literally the same thing in repeat. And you have to feel for the guy, but at the same time, part of this is who you partner with. Your own promoter is not looking out for you. They could have gave, Demetrius Andrade, Sergey Derevyanchenko. They could have gave him Chavez Jr., but they gave it to Danny Jacobs. So your own promoter, it's hard to make a case for Andrade, you know, in this situation and say this looks good when your own promoter is kicking you out and not giving you the big fights that you need to gain the attention. See, the reason when Erislandy Lara, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the reason why when he upstaged Canelo, it worked is because Erislandy Lara, his losses on his record were like Paul Williams in the boxing world knew that that was cap. And he was considered one of the best fighters in the division. Andrade isn't at 168 now, and he's coming off of a performance where, like I said, some people were underwhelmed against an unknown Liam Williams. Meanwhile, Canelo, in front of 70,000 people, knocked out a top 5 guy in a unification. So the timing was just bad. So I really feel Andrade, if he was going to do this, I understand the intent, I understand you want the fight, but it just reeks of desperation. And I think if Andrade was going to do that, he should have did it at 54 or 60. Now you just look out of your element. Canelo's like, get the F out of here and fronting on you. And, you know, most likely you're not going to get the fight. And how are you going to get the fight when Eddie Hearn's sitting right there kicking you out the press conference saying, no, don't do that, you know, and trying to kind of protect Canelo's image by not letting you upstage him. So just bad business moves, and it doesn't look like Andrade's on a platform that is going to allow for that. So I think there's other things that people have to take in consideration. You know, entertaining, yes, it was that. Anytime you see this, you know, just somebody pull up, or Clubber Lang or Denny Jacobs versus Charlo in the Barclays hallway, it's always going to be entertaining. But I don't really feel like Andrade did much favors by doing it, and I don't think he'll secure the fight by doing it, which to me, I feel like if you're going to get kicked out, you have to make it count. You know what I mean? So the fans are like getting your back. But if we just watch Canelo look good, look sharp versus Billy Joe Saunders, and then Andrade last performance was like, you know, I thought he was going to stop the guy. Canelo's, you should have just let him kind of have his night. You know what I mean? But to each his own. That's my opinion. We unpack. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.